What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's some of my final thoughts ahead of the Game Week 11 deadline. So I'm going to go through the team news, talk about benching headaches, go through your questions, of which there are a lot this week, including when to wildcard or free hit. Spoiler alert, there is no perfect week. And then I'm going to take a quick look at my own team as well. Let's get into it. So let's start with the team news. For Arsenal, Mikel Arteta was asked if Gyökeres, Havertz, Madueke, Martinelli and Odegaard are all out of the Sunderland game. He said, "I cannot confirm all of that, but you are not far." Kind of implying that one or two of those players might be available. Now, if you're a Gyökeres owner, I would not get your hopes up. We know he didn't play in the Champions League game at all. He wasn't in the squad. And as far as we know, he hasn't been training. He's also not in the Sweden squad. And you'd think if there was a chance of him playing this week, he probably would be. Like, he's quite important to that Sweden team. It's worth saying, none of those mentioned players are in their international squads, but they've all been out for a little while. Whereas Gyökeres is only just out. So I don't think it's Gyökeres. As far as we know, Havertz is not training. So Madueke, Martinelli and Odegaard, it could be one or two of those players. The rumours going around seem to be that it could be Madueke that's back. Maybe putting slight doubt on Saka's minutes long term, but probably not enough where you would now avoid Saka or anything like that. So if you're a Gyökeres owner, he's not going to play Game Week 11 in my opinion. And then you have to wait and see if he's back for Game Week 12. So for most of you, he's probably going to be a sell this week. For Liverpool, Isak is back in training today, so presumably Ekitike will start the game against Man City, but there is a chance it could be Isak. Either way, I would probably ignore both of them. Like, Man City away is not a great week to buy them anyway, so just reassess Game Week 12 onwards. But if they're both fit, they're going to eat into each other's minutes. Alisson should be back by Game Week 12, which is great news for all those Van Dijk owners out there, because the fixtures are going to get really good from 12, and now they've got their keeper back, hopefully. For Newcastle, Gordon is a doubt for Game Week 11. Eddie Howe said he'll be given every chance of playing but needs a scan to check severity. So we don't know if he's going to be available. He might be, he might not. I think he's a sell. Because even if he was fit, I think Gordon owners would be thinking about getting rid of him. Now you've got your excuse. Will I do it for a hit? Depends who you're bringing in. Like, if you were selling Gyökeres and Gordon to get Saka and someone for a hit, that kind of move I'd maybe be tempted. If you've got a decent bench player, you could just hold on to him for now and deal with it in Game Week 12 instead. But in most cases, I'd probably just get rid of Gordon. The minutes are not quite there, even though he's on penalties, etc. And now he's a doubt for Game Week 11. He is in the England squad, by the way. So he's not completely ruled out, it has to be said. For Chelsea, Neto has returned to training, but presumably that's not really a big issue for most people. So for Crystal Palace, they played a Europa Conference League game last night. Sarr started that game, but got subbed off around the 65th minute. Glasner said he had very, very small tightness in his hamstring. And he's already had a hamstring problem once this season. But importantly, that tightness that he felt in his hamstring happened before last night's game. So apparently it was on Wednesday, and they deemed it not serious enough to put him on the bench. So he still started that game, despite having very, very small tightness in his hamstring. They just managed the minutes by bringing him off early. Now, Glasner has had a press conference on Friday. Nothing was mentioned about Sarr, so presumably he's fine. He's going to start against Brighton and hopefully gets 80-plus minutes. I think if you've got him, you absolutely hold on to him because the fixtures are just good for Crystal Palace. It's Wolves away in 12, Man United at home in 13, Burnley away in 14. So I would definitely hold him. If you're thinking about buying, it's probably still fine. But if you're an FPL manager that wants to play super safe with minutes, then maybe you avoid him. Like, if he has got even a slight hamstring problem that could cause his minutes being managed, he's got games over the international break, European games back after, from Game Week 12 onwards, obviously, we'll be back after the international break. Palace will still have some European games. If you want to play it super safe, avoid him. But I still think he's a pretty good buy for that price, to be honest with you, because the fixture is just so good. His goal threat is so good as well. And by the way, he did really well in that European match last night too. Also, so did Lacroix. Lacroix, if that was an FPL game, would have walked away with a goal and assist. Yes, I am bitter about that. For Leeds, Calvert-Lewin has an adductor strain. I can't get my words out. Late fitness call, not in team training yet. Now, part of me thinks it's Calvert-Lewin, they shouldn't take the risk. But Forest away is the kind of game that Leeds should also probably be targeting. Like, it's the kind of game they can get something from. So I'm not quite sure. I would assume he's not going to play. I think that's the safest thing for Leeds to do, is just not risk him. It depends what the rest of your squad looks like. But if you've got someone on the bench you can play instead, just do that. And Calvert-Lewin obviously not worth buying right now. Njai has trained ahead of Fulham, expected to be fine. I'm pretty sure he's going to start. According to Moyes, after the previous game where he got subbed off, it was just cramp anyway. He's on penalties. It's Fulham at home. Decent fixture. I've seen some people considering Njai to Enzo from Chelsea. I kind of get it because they got better fixture this week and it's Burnley away next week. But Njai is also on penalties. So it's not like you're getting a massive upgrade, in my opinion. Like, the fixture has to do a lot of heavy lifting there. So personally, like, do I think Enzo is better than Njai next 2 weeks? Yes. But I don't think he's miles better this week. So I think in most cases, unless you're, sat there with loads of free transfers, I just keep Njai and save my transfer for next week. And then if you really want to buy Enzo, you can do it next week. But I suspect that people that don't buy Enzo this week won't be that keen on buying him next week. So I think I favour having the transfer and Njai this week rather than using a transfer to go to Enzo, I think. I don't know how many people are looking at that, but I have seen a few. And then for Sunderland, Alderete is still out. Apparently he's had a setback from this concussion that he's had, which obviously doesn't sound great, so hopefully he's fine. But the manager basically said it's not that big of a deal. Just the protocols are really strict, which they should be, and he's out. For this game. Presumably he'll be back after the international break. I can't imagine many of you are looking to play him against Arsenal anyway. But just a heads up, he won't play in game week 11. And just a couple of other bits that are relevant from an FPL point of view. For Spurs, Thomas Frank said that Kudus is touch and go. So not completely ruled out, but not definitely going to start either. Because of that, I have bumped him down a little bit in the benching headaches. I think because it's Man United at home, they'll give him every chance to play. And if he can, he probably will. But obviously there is a chance with the player that's touch and go that they could be on the bench and come on for a cameo. So I think in the case where you've got a close call between Kudus and someone else, I'd probably just play the other player if they're guaranteed to start. Romero and Udogie are both fit. For City, Rodri unlikely to be risked this weekend. That obviously helps Liverpool a little bit. Man City won't be quite as good defensively. It also means presumably Nico Gonzalez will play, which will give, Rodri, give Reinders a little bit more license to go forward. And I do think Reinders will start, and he's not a terrible pick this week, but I would have no hesitation to sell him. If that makes sense for your team. So let's go through some benching headaches for game week 11. Right at the top of the list in terms of players I think you should start, I've gone for Lucas Paquetá against Burnley at home. Not a great long-term pick. I would not be looking to buy him. But if you've held him this long, this is one of West Ham's best fixtures all season. And I know West Ham are not great themselves, but Burnley at home is good. I would definitely play him. He's going to start, going to play 90 minutes almost certainly. He's on penalties. Yes, the open play attacking threat is not amazing, but it is Burnley at home. So he'd be right at the top. Then Minteh against Forest away. I just think he's a really good pick right now. Then Tarkowski and Keane against Fulham at home. I think in recent seasons, I probably would have had them further down the list because I always prefer to play the attacker. But with defensive contributions now and a genuine shot at a clean sheet, and both of them having some attacking threat too, I've gone for them ahead of players like Gakpo, Kudus, Reinders, Dewsbury Hall, etc. So you could argue Keane should be ahead of Tarkowski now because his goal threat's probably a bit better and he's been better for defensive contributions recently. But that's a bit of recency bias, I think. So I'd probably still have Tarkowski just about ahead. Then Gakpo against Man City away. I will say I can't 100% say for certain that he will start. I'm pretty sure he will. But if you want to play it safe, you could bump him down the list a little bit, maybe below like Dewsbury Hall or something like that. But I think he'll play. I think he'll get some chance against Man City. Then Richards against Brighton at home. Then Anderson against Everton away. If Anderson was also at home, I would definitely play him above Richards. It's just the home and away thing that make me choose that way around. Then I've gone for Kudus. According to Thomas Frank, like I mentioned earlier, he's touch and go. So it is a bit risky. If you want to be ultra safe, just put him on the bench. Because there could be a chance that he's benched for Spurs and then comes on. But Man United at home is not a terrible fixture. And I look at the players under him, like Reinders, Dewsbury Hall. Like, how excited are we about points from them anyway? So that's why I've gone for Kudus kind of middle of the road. But I'm absolutely cool if you want to put him further down. Then Reinders ahead of Dewsbury Hall. I'm probably going to sell Reinders and play Dewsbury Hall. But that's purely a price thing. I'm pretty sure if I had both of them, I would play Reinders. Again, Dewsbury Hall is the safer starter because you know he's going to play for Everton. Reinders could get benched. But I think we've only seen him benched after he didn't train the whole week. He's pretty much always been a starter outside of that. And if you're going to play Liverpool, this is maybe one of the better times to do it, right? They have been struggling at times this season. There could be chances in that game. So Ryan is there. Then I've got Senesi against Villa away. Now, for my own team again, I might play Senesi ahead of Dewsbury Hall, just because I've got Anderson in the 11 as well. But if it was just purely Dewsbury Hall versus Senesi, my gut feeling is I'd play Dewsbury Hall, despite DEFCONs for Senesi. Then Rodon, then Goodmanson, then Van Dijk right at the bottom. Rodon ahead of Goodmanson purely because he's become a goal machine. And then Van Dijk, look, again, in seasons gone past, it always felt like players like Van Dijk, you had to play every single game. Chance of getting a clean sheet away to City seemed pretty low to me. Yes, he's got attacking threat, but does that trump the better fixtures that other players have got on this list? Like Van Dijk will almost certainly get defensive contributions in this game, but will Liverpool be able to keep the score down? That's what I'm a little bit unsure of. So, as always with these things, you want to put Van Dijk up, further up, go for it. But Van Dijk currently is my third bench. When I buy Mark Guiu, then Van Dijk will be second bench instead. But I'm not going to play him. I'm going to play Senesi and Anderson ahead of him and Dewsbury Hall. So I think putting him at the bottom is absolutely fair. So let's get into some of your questions. And there were a lot submitted for this video, so I'll try and get through them as quickly as possible. If I haven't used my bench boost yet, is Game Week 16 a good time to use it, considering we get 5 free transfers to use then? So basically, if you've not got a week in mind to use your bench boost, around Game Week 16-17 might be a nice idea. Because you get the top up to 5 in Game Week 16. Any you've got spare in Game Week 15, you might as well use. So you can start prepping for your bench boost in 16 or maybe 17 instead. I think for a lot of players, like the cheap ones that you want to stick on your bench, Game Week 17 might be a little bit better for most people. So take Brighton, for example. They've got Liverpool away in 16, but it's Sunderland at home in Game Week 17. So you might not want someone like Van Heck right now, but you might buy him closer to the time to get that bench boost activated. If you've only got 2 playing forwards and Danny Welbeck is still playing around Game Weeks 15, 16, you might bring him in for Sunderland at home, etc. And if you look at that week, I believe there's some other teams that have got pretty good fixtures. So Bournemouth, if you're carrying like Truffert or Senesi, they've got Burnley at home. Brighton, like I said, are Sunderland at home. Wolves have got Brentford. So maybe not even Wolves players, but maybe like Vandenberg by that point, Thiago, another cheap forward, etc. Leeds are at home to Palace, which is not great, but if you had to play Rodon on a bench boost, that wouldn't be too bad, etc. Fulham have got Forest, so Anderson at 4.5 million, another great value player that could potentially be on your bench. Whereas Game Week 16, like Brentford have actually got Leeds at home. So again, Vandenberg, Thiago, pretty good. Either way, you don't need to decide right now. Just know if you've not got a week in mind soon, then yes, your get out is basically the free transfers in Game Week 16. And I know a lot of people are aiming for Game Week 17 bench boost. On the other hand, if you've got a good bench anytime soon, I would just get it out of the way. It just frees you up to be able to reduce some of that money on the bench and stop you having to think about the bench boost. So if you've got a good bench in 11 or 12 or 13, whenever it is, and it's not going to be much better later on, I would just get it used. So what are your thoughts on Morgan Rogers? Seems to be doing okay, flying under the radar with assists in recent weeks. So last 5 game weeks, he does have 1 goal, 2 assists, and actually they came between game weeks 6 to 8. He's blanked the last 2, but that was Man City at home and Liverpool away, so we can forgive him for that. He always plays, and he almost always plays 90 minutes as well. His average minutes per start so far this season, 89. So he's not a terrible pick by any means. The thing that puts me off is really the price. At 6.8 million, I need to believe that he is better than Rice or Szoboszlai from Game Week 12 or Ismail Assar from Crystal Palace or Enzo Fernandez on penalties right now with no Palmer, Wolves at home, then Burnley away. And I'm not convinced that he is better than any of those other picks at the same price. And so it's okay to take a punt if you want to. Of course it is, right? But I just don't think he is better. If he was 6 million or below like Minteh, I might be a bit more interested. But he's not. He's 6.8. And look, the next 4 fixtures are okay. Bournemouth at home, Leeds away, Wolves at home, Brighton away. We're not worried about the minutes, even though Villa are in Europe. But the underlying numbers are so bad. And we know he can do better, but so far this season, 0.06 expected goals per 90, 0.08 expected assists. It's just pretty terrible. And he's going to get returns in that Villa team. I think he's too good not to. But I don't know. I need to be convinced by someone that he's better than a lot of those. Like, we're going to talk about Minteh later. He's 0.8 million cheaper and his underlying stats are much better and the fixtures are better for a longer time as well. So I'd much rather just save the money. Even if you're not keen on Rice or Sarr or Enzo, etc., I would probably just buy Minteh and save myself 0.8. I just think Rodgers was popular last year for good reason. He started the season at 5 million. He was indestructible in terms of minutes. This year, even though he's played better recently and we know he's a good player, I just can't pay 6.8 for him right now. So what are your thoughts on ignoring Declan Rice and going for Trossard instead? Now, to be fair, since game week 5, his minutes have been pretty good. He's played 80 plus in every game apart from game week 7 against West Ham, but he's still got 74 minutes in that game. And even when Martinelli was fit, Trossard was starting ahead of him on the left. So I get why people are looking at him. My problem is just the minutes long term. With Declan Rice, there's almost no concern whatsoever. With Trossard, I think there is. Once Martinelli is back fit, which could be after the international break, he can play on the left. If Odegaard comes back, he can play central, Eze can play on the left. And by the way, with Madueke back, it's not necessarily just that he will affect Saka's minutes. He can also play on the left as well. And Arteta has already used him in that position this season. So all of a sudden, you've got 4 players, Trossard, Martinelli, Eze, and Madueke, that can all play on the left. And of course, Trossard's versatile, so he can play through the middle. But then you've got Gyökeres, Havertz, Gabriel Jesus now is apparently back in training. Marino can play there as well. And if you're going to talk about Trossard as like an 8, Odegaard, Eze, etc., the minutes for Arsenal players when they're all fit is an absolute headache. And I just think as a long-term pick, Trossard is not the one. It doesn't mean that I think you have to go for Rice, by the way. I think right now we've all got it in our heads that we have to have 3 Arsenal players. Like, it's crazy to go without. But for some people, it might make sense. Like, if you're happy with the rest of your midfield and you can't get to Saka, it doesn't mean you have to buy Rice or Trossard if you think a player from a different team is better. It's okay. I promise you, it is okay to go with 2 Arsenal just for a little bit. You can always bring them in later on if you want to. So don't feel like you have to buy Rice or Trossard. If you're not happy with Rice because you feel like he's boring, which I think the person that sent this message in said, you don't have to just go for Trossard. You can pick someone else. So, yeah, for me, Trossard's okay right now, and he'll probably be fine for game week 12 as well, because even if all those players I mentioned in the team news section are back for game week 12, they won't have played many minutes recently. So Trossard probably will start against Spurs. After that, who knows? So what should we do with Cody Gakpo? Great fixtures, but he's a minutes risk with so many good midfielders to pick from. If you don't own him, you're obviously not buying this week because it's Man City away. And I do think there's a really good argument just to ignore him from game week 12 onwards. Like, I don't completely hate the idea of buying him in game week 12. He's a nice punt because of how good the fixtures are. And when he does play, his goal threat and creativity is very good. Like, if you guaranteed me 90 minutes week in, week out from Gakpo, game week 12 onwards, I would definitely buy him. So there is a good FPL pick there. But there's also a case to ignore him because his minutes aren't secure. We saw that against Real Madrid. Vert started in that position instead. And obviously they play that role a bit different. But now we know that's an option for slot. Gakpo is a risk. When Ekitike and Isak are fit, they can both play together. So Gakpo will probably start most games. But early subs are definitely a possibility. And he can get benched. So I think there's an argument not to buy him. If you've got him, it's a little bit more difficult, because he probably will start against Man City, and then the fixtures are really good. So I would be tempted, if you can, if it doesn't massively affect your team this week, try and keep him for 11. Because all it takes is an injury or two to that Liverpool squad, and then all of a sudden Gakpo's minutes might look a little bit better, and then you'd feel really bad that you've sold him before the good fixtures. So unless it's massively detrimental to your team, I would be tempted to hold him for 11, then just reassess ahead of 12. And don't get me wrong, it's not going to be easy to sell him before game week 12. But if it needs to be done, you can do that. And obviously you've got an extra transfer to do it because you haven't made that move this week. But if you're not keen, if you're not someone that handles minutes risk in your FPL squad that well, like it really frustrates you, etc., this is the window to sell him. Because it's game week 11, he's got Man City away. So there's a case to be made to hold on, but if I was in your shoes, I'd be quite tempted to sell. Enzo Fernandez got another couple of nice fixtures over the next 2. Leeds away in game week 13 as well. Sarr for Crystal Palace, etc. There's plenty of cheap midfielders you can go to. I do quite like Szoboszlai from game week 12 because he's playing 90 minutes every single game, but I wouldn't make that move this week, Gakpo to Szoboszlai. And there is part of me that thinks, are we just looking at Szoboszlai because he plays for Liverpool? Like, is Szoboszlai better than Enzo or or Sarr, etc. That's going to be a conversation for game week 12. But at least with Szoboszlai, from what we've seen so far this season, you've got the minutes. 10 90-minute games in a row. So maybe he's the one to look at. But yeah, it's a tough position to be in if you've got him. I'd try and hold till game week 12 and reassess. But if everyone's fit going into 12, you've got the same problems. It's just a minutes concern. But at least you've got the international break to think about it. So who's the better pick, Rice or Minteh? So Declan Rice, 9 defensive contributions per start. Minteh at 7.2. So he's not going to hit it that often. Rice will hit it sometimes. Interestingly, their attacking numbers are quite similar looking at the Opta stats tool on Fantasy Football Hub. 0.36 expected goal involvement per 90 for Rice, 0.37 for Minteh. I will say, Declan Rice I wouldn't expect to go much higher than that. And if anything, he might drop down a little bit. Whereas Minteh, I think, is capable of being a bit better. So I do think over the next 8 to 10 game weeks, we will see Minteh be better, especially from open play, right? I know Rice has got set pieces, and I know how good Arsenal are from them, but his open play threat is not going to be as high as Minteh generally. So it's quite a close call. Fixture-wise, Arsenal's are pretty good, to be honest with you. I think Brighton's are maybe slightly better once you get past the Crystal Palace away game, but there's not a huge amount in it. And obviously, Arsenal will keep more clean sheets, so you've got that extra point as well. This one's really close. I'd maybe edge towards Rice in terms of total points over the next 8 to 10 weeks. But Minteh, it's just that price of 6 million. I think it's really good. I just wonder if Minteh plus 0.8 million is better than buying Declan Rice. Also, you leave your Arsenal spot open to potentially go to someone else down the line. And again, and I've already mentioned it in this video, and I know I'm going to have to mention it a lot on the deadline stream, you don't have to have 3 Arsenal players. There's always the opportunity to bring them in, a different one in later on. So yeah, like if you're on double defence and no Arsenal attacker, you can go Minteh now. Maybe there'll be an opportunity later on to triple up on the defence. Maybe it'll be that you really want Saka, or someone gets injured and then this other attacker is really good. Like Havertz, for example, we get to game week 12. Arteta said he's had a setback. Oh, and by the way, Gyökeres is fine now. Do you know what I mean? It feels right now like you've got to have the 3, and it's an absolute essential thing to do. But there will be opportunities to make different moves later. So, yeah, total points. I think Rice maybe ever so slightly edges it. But I think Minteh is fantastic value at 6 million. And that extra 0.8 could be useful later on. For the benefit of the doubt, by the way, because I think often in these videos, I try and just give you different points of view, and then hopefully you can make the decision from that. But obviously, some people give me grief that I don't just say, I would buy this player or that player. I'm pretty sure I would buy Minteh instead of Rice. Because I think Rice is a really good pick, but I'm not as convinced as other people that he's going to keep up the scoring rate he's got now. And I do really like Brighton's fixtures, and I like the price for Minteh as well. And I think that money, like I said later on, could be useful. Even if you're not using it right now, there's always a time when money is handy in FPL. So for the benefit of to avoid any doubt here, I would probably pick Minteh, but they are both good picks, right? That's why it's a difficult decision. So who's the better pick, Thiago or Welbeck? This is another really close call that I'm going to find difficult to split. Fixture-wise, Brentford do have Burnley at home in 13 and Leeds at home in 16, which are quite nice. But I do think outside of that, Brighton's fixtures are better. It's not ideal this week because they're away to Palace, but next week it's Brentford at home. I'd rather Welbeck versus Brentford at home than Thiago versus Brighton away. Forest away in 13, then it's a home game against Villa. They get to play West Ham at home in 15, Sunderland at home in 17, then West Ham again in 19, and Burnley at home in 20. So I think longer term, I just about prefer Brighton's fixtures. But it is worth saying, when you get to, and we're looking a bit far ahead here, but when you get to game week 16, it is Liverpool away, and 18 is Arsenal away. So the fixtures are really nice, but they do have some really difficult ones thrown in there as well. When you look at Thiago longer term, the fixtures are also pretty good. Like Leeds at home in 16, Wolves away in 17. Then it's Bournemouth at home, Spurs at home, Everton away. They get to play Sunderland at home in 21. So I think Brighton just about have the fixtures longer term. But I've just got... It's just Hurtzler. Kind of puts me off a little bit with Brighton players. I probably should have mentioned that when I was talking about Minteh. There will be a time at some point when Welbeck is unavailable and you just don't find out about it until the team sheet drops, because Hurtzler just won't have told you about it. And that's the only thing that worries me. I know Thiago was out for a long time. Like, bearing in mind, Brentford didn't sign him this summer. They signed him the summer before. And he had that really bad injury where he's out for pretty much the whole season. But I still have more faith in his fitness than I probably do with Danny Welbeck. Thiago, we know, is on penalties now. Sharda missed one. Thiago got the next one and scored. Welbeck, I'm pretty sure, will be first choice penalty taker for Brighton as well. Underlying numbers slightly better for him. I would expect Brighton to be a slightly better attacking team than Brentford. Thiago slightly cheaper. Oh, God, this one. I think if you're not having to play them every week and you're going to pick and choose because you've got 8 good attackers, actually, even if that's not a thing, even if you just have to play them every week, I think I would choose Thiago and just take the 0.3 million saving. Like, the fixtures are not so bad that, you know, like Brighton's fixtures I do just about prefer, but it's not like Brentford's overall are absolutely terrible. He's a little bit cheaper, and even though it could be wrong because we've not seen Thiago play many games in the Premier League, for some reason I've just got more faith in his fitness, and I got more faith that Keith Andrews will tell us about it than Hertzler telling us about Welbeck. So I'm going to say Thiago, but again, it's a really close call. If you're saying, no, I don't agree with you, I want to go Welbeck, he's also a really good pick right now. So various different people on YouTube comments or on Twitter have asked me why I didn't mention certain players as captaincy picks in the game week preview. So I mostly talked about Saka and Haaland. So you didn't mention Minteh, Bowen, Enzo, or João Pedro as captaincy options the other day. Plus, what about Gabriel? So in their own right, I guess they're all okay picks. Like Jarrod Bowen's got Burnley at home. That's nice. But he doesn't have penalties. And his underlying numbers have not been amazing so far this season. And West Ham have been pretty bad. Like, if they'd lost to Newcastle, and look, they didn't, I get it, and they did play pretty well. But if they'd lost to Newcastle, would Bowen even be a consideration for people? I don't think so. If you've got Bowen, I like him. If you want a 1 week punt, I also like him up front. Captaincy, like, is Bowen better than Haaland? Not for me. João Pedro, no interest whatsoever. Last week, people were all over selling him. We can't now say he's a captaincy option. His minutes are probably a little bit lower this week than they have been for previous weeks as well, with the lap back, etc. I still think João Pedro's got a great chance of playing the whole game, by the way, but they could be lower. He doesn't have penalties either. We think it's Enzo still. Enzo, I mean, here's the question for you, right? If Bruno Fernandes had Wolves at home this week, would you captain him over Haaland? Because I don't think Enzo Fernandez is better than Bruno Fernandes. Forget about prices set. I'm just thinking about penalties, defcons, open play threat, etc. I think they're quite close. I think Enzo's actually quite good value. But we're talking about captaincy. Would you captain Bruno Fernandes against Wolves at home instead of Haaland against Liverpool at home? If the answer to that question is yes, I would give it really serious thought. Then Enzo's a good pick. But I'm not convinced most people would. So I think you've got to give it to Haaland over Enzo personally. And again, Mateta's a good pick, right? He's probably on penalties, although he did miss one last night, and it wasn't a great penalty, so he could be off them. We'll have to wait and see. And look, Brighton at home is a good fixture, but it's not Burnley at home, right, or West Ham at home. So again, it is Mateta because he's got a slightly better fixture against Brighton at home rather than Liverpool at home. Does that trump Haaland? I'm not sure it does. And look, Gabriel's fine, but I'm probably never going to think that he's better than Saka, to be honest with you. You know, he's got a few double-digit hauls recently, and of course he is capable of doing that now with the clean sheets, the defcons, the attack and returns. But again, Gabriel's attack and returns are going to dry up soon. But he's not going to keep getting them at the consistency he has now. Like, he is one of the best defenders, if not the best defender for goal threat in the league. He still can't keep up this level of goals and assists, right? So I'm not as on board about that as other people. But of course, it's your team. If you think I'm an idiot, which, by the way, you'd probably be right about, captain one of these players. Like, it's absolutely fine. But I think for me, you need to be absolutely sure they're better than Haaland, or they've got a good chance of being better, because the ownership of Haaland is so high. So if I had to captain one of these players mentioned, Mateta, Bowen, Enzo, João Pedro, Gabriel, I'd probably go Mateta, then Enzo, and then Gabriel. Probably ahead of João Pedro, just about. Probably ahead of Bowen, maybe. I still think Haaland's better than all of them. So a bit like with the different captains that I just spoke about, I got a lot of questions and comments about when to play the wildcard and free hit in the first half of the season. Specifically, I spoke about wildcard 12 versus 13 on the game week preview and got loads of follow-up questions about using it in game week 11 or saving it for later on if you don't need it in 12 or 13. And then free hit was simply, when do we play it? First thing to say, from what I've looked at least, there is no perfect week to play these chips in the first half of the season. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter as much as people think. Like, we want to stress over these chips. We want to use it in the perfect week. There isn't really any in the first half of the season because all we're working off are single game weeks. We know the Palace and Arsenal game has been scheduled for the 23rd of December. There's no blanks, therefore there'll be no doubles. Unless there's like a weather event or something that postpones the game. But obviously we can't predict that. So we have to work off right now, no blanks, no doubles. I promise you, in the second half of the season when we have blanks and doubles, the weeks that you'll probably want to use your chips, and obviously it's completely up to you when you want to use them, will be really narrowed down. There'll be conversations about, do we free hit in the blank, do we free hit in the double, do we wildcard just before this double so we can bench boost, etc. The weeks you'll want to use your chips in the second half will be a bit more obvious. First half, not so much, honestly. Like for wildcard, you've got a Liverpool fixture swing in game week 12. How many Liverpool players are you going to want? Maybe Van Dijk? Do you want Szoboszlai? Do you want to risk the Gakpo minutes? Do you want to pay for Salah? Do you want to go Salah and Haaland? Probably not. So how many Liverpool players are you actually going to go for? There's a Man City fixture swing in game week 13. How many Man City players are you going to pick outside of Haaland? There's a Newcastle fixture swing in game week 15, and they've got some okay fixtures before. How many Newcastle players do you want right now? The answer is probably not that many. So if you've got a team similar to me where you're tripled up on Arsenal, maybe you've got like one Man United player, 2 or 3 Palace, etc., your team's probably going to look good in 12. It's probably going to look good in game week 14 as well. So if you feel like you don't need it this week, your team looks good in 12, it's going to continue to look okay in 13, 14, etc., you can delay the wildcard. You've got till game week 19 to use it. You can just wait until a week springs up where you think, actually, do you know what, this week I need it. Worst case scenario, you get to game week 19 and you've wasted your wildcard. But if your teams look good all the way up until that point, it's not the end of the world. We also have the top-up of 5 free transfers in game week 16. So if you want to wait for as much information as possible before we get that top-up, you could wildcard in game week 15, then maybe work out some short-term punts over the next few weeks. And look, everybody's going to be looking at short-term punts when they get those 5 free transfers, but with the wildcard, it might be easier to set up. So I know people want me to say this is the week you should wildcard. There isn't a week like that. For a lot of people, it probably is 12 or 13, to be honest with you. But I'm telling you now, a lot of people are going to have good teams in those weeks. So you're just going to have to play it by ear. I can't narrow it down any more than that. I wish I could. Free hit, I've looked at quite a lot. And personally, I keep coming back to game week 13. Because if your team is mostly made up of Liverpool, Man United, Crystal Palace, Arsenal, they're good in game week 12, they're good in game week 14. They are less good in game week 13, but they're not terrible. So when I'm talking about free hitting in game week 13, I'm talking about removing my Crystal Palace players before they play Man United at home. Could be a disaster. I'm talking about removing my Arsenal players before they play Chelsea away. Could Arsenal keep a clean sheet Chelsea away? Of course they could, and their ownership is super high. So the reality with free hit is you are using it in a week where you're removing 11 players with one game for 11 different players with one game. It could go disastrously wrong. So you can do it in game week 13 like I'm considering doing, but I'm taking out very good players that could do really well to go for like triple Brentford against Burnley. Like taking out my Arsenal players before Chelsea away to get triple Brentford against Burnley, could that go wrong? Of course it could. You could free hit in 12 or 14 to get triple Liverpool like Salah because they've got good fixtures. Forest at home in 12, Sunderland at home in 14 if you wanted to do that. But like I've just said, a lot of people, if they're stacked on Arsenal, if they've already got 1 or 2 Liverpool, maybe 1 or 2 Man United, Crystal Palace, etc., really good fixtures in 12 and 14. So is it worth free hitting for one player in Salah just to captain him? Maybe it is. He's a huge differential. You've got to decide yourself. Game week 15, also not a bad free hit week. The problem with free hit in 13, 15 or 17 is most people already have Haaland. And that's the weeks where Haaland's really good. In 13, it's Leeds at home, 15, Sunderland at home, and 17 is West Ham at home. But most people don't have 3 Man City. So maybe it's actually okay to free hit in a week where you've got Haaland already to add 2 more Man City, etc. It's up to you. Like, if you get to game week 16 and you don't want to use all those transfers straight away, you could free hit so you've still got 5 in 17 without making a move. You could also do what I've seen some people discuss, which is just wait and see which week you have the most issues. Like, players have got to get to game week 19 without getting 5 yellow cards or they get suspended. So there is potential for you over Christmas, like game week 16, 17, 18, etc., that you might have 2 or 3 suspensions in your team, or you might have a player that's got a really minor injury which is going to keep them out for 1 week, that you don't want to sell that you want back next week. So you can just wait to use your free hit in a week like that. Again, worst case scenario, you get to 17, 18, 19 with no issues, and you've just got to use your free hit chip in a week where maybe you're only making 1 or 2 upgrades. I really wish I could narrow it down more than that, but that is the state of play right now. There is just not an obvious week. It's almost like just pick your week and that's it, and just hope it's good. There is like game week 13 could be great because I'm looking at it, it's probably going to be triple Liverpool, triple Man City, triple Brentford, then a couple of other players. Could be an absolute disaster. Could Arsenal win 1-0 against Chelsea away? Of course they could. Could Gabriel score that goal? Could Gabriel assist for Calafiori? Of course, right? Could be a disaster. I think with these things, I really wish I could like explain it in a better way or come up with a way that would make you think, no, this is the week I've got to do it. There isn't that week. Any week can work. I've seen loads of discuss. I quite like 13. I've looked at 16. I've looked at 15. Like I got to be honest, I've probably ruled out 17 if that helps, because in game week 17 I'm going to have 5 transfers anyway. And okay, City are playing West Ham, but there's not really many other great options to target. Like Chelsea are away to Newcastle, Liverpool are away to Spurs, Arsenal are away to Everton. I'll probably already have 2 or 3. Palace are away to Leeds. Like I don't think the other picks are that good. And obviously, for some of you, you're going to have to look at triple captain as well. So triple captain Haaland against West Ham could be good. 16. If you don't have triple Arsenal, you could get a triple up against Wolves at home. Liverpool got Brighton at home, which is quite nice. Chelsea defenders against Everton at home, not bad. Brentford against Leeds. Newcastle players away to Sunderland, although I don't think that's worth a free hit. Game week 15, get your triple Man City against Sunderland, triple Newcastle against Burnley, and maybe a few Brighton players against West Ham if you don't have many of them. Like, that's not a bad week. Man United away to Wolves. I mean, people might have 1 or 2 Man United players. They're probably not going to be tripled up. You could triple up on Man United against Wolves, maybe Newcastle against Burnley, Man City against Sunderland. I think game week 15 is a week where if people free hit, they'll make the most changes to their team. Like I looked at a potential draft. I'm not going to go into it now, but a potential draft for game week 13, and I changed 9 of my players. That's why I quite like it, but it could be a disaster. Anyway, that's 8 minutes on wildcard and free hit, and basically the answer is do it whenever you want. Do it when you really feel you need it. There is no perfect week. So just some final thoughts on my own team going into tomorrow's deadline, and I'll try and be quick because nothing's fully locked in yet. This is one of the toughest weeks for FPL I've had for a little while in terms of decision making, because I'm not quite sure what transfer I want to make, and I'm not quite sure which player to bench either. Like my last 3 transfers have basically been by Haaland in game week 6, by Gabriel in game week 7, by Minteh in game week 10. Super easy. This week I've got different options, and that just makes it harder. So at the moment, Raya and Gabriel double up, nice and easy. Lequar against Brighton at home, Anderson against Everton away, and Senesi against Villa away. As I mentioned in benching headaches, I do think Dewsbury Hall is better than Senesi, so I may well put him back in the 11. The reason I've taken him out is just because I'm playing Anderson. So just not to have that attacker versus defender thing. But I don't know, Anderson could get DEFCONs and Everton could win 1-0 with a Dewsbury Hall goal. And then all of a sudden, Anderson's got 4 points and I've still got returns from Dewsbury Hall. So I'm not quite sure whether I should play Senesi. I think it's a really close call. But at the moment, I've gone for the back 4. Paquetá, Burnley at home, Fernandes, Spurs away, Senesi, Villa away. Semenyo, Villa away. Super easy midfield 3. Minteh, Brighton at home. Haaland's my captain against Liverpool. I'm pretty sure that will stick. And then it's just about what to do with Gyökeres. Now, I'm definitely going to sell him to Guiu. I do not see me buying Welbeck or Thiago. That's the other one. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to sell him to Guiu. That will put him last on my bench. That will move Van Dijk up to second bench. It's just about who I buy for Reinders. So either I do Gyökeres to Guiu and Reinders to Saka. Maybe Captain Saka this week, but I don't see it. Probably Captain Saka in game week 12 against Spurs at home. Or I sell Dewsbury Hall as well and get Mbeumo and Sarr, or Mbeumo and Enzo. Something like that. There is another thought that crossed my mind, and that is not get Saka and not get the second midfielder. So maybe do Gyökeres to Guiu and then Reinders to Mbeumo, and then decide which 6.5 million midfielder to get next week. That leaves an option for Szoboszlai. But that feels really passive, I think. Because if I really needed to, I could get Szoboszlai with 2 free transfers next week. It feels better just to get Saka in place. The only slight doubts I'm having on Saka is if Madueke is available this weekend, That means as long as he doesn't get injured, bearing in mind he's not in the England squad, he's going to be available for Spurs at home and then going forward. And we haven't really seen much Arsenal this season with both Saka and Madueke available. And I just think that's such an obvious sub for Arteta in any game. For what it's worth, I don't think that Saka is going to get bench loads. In fact, I'm not even sure he gets benched at all in the Premier League. But early subs like 70, 75, 80 minutes, they become more possible. It's also possible that Madueke gets subbed on to play on the left. Or Madueke gets subbed on, Saka stays on and he plays on the left, which has happened 1 or 2 times, I believe, this season for Arsenal. So it's not a case that Madueke's back, Saka's minutes are now terrible. But he does get slightly worse because the early sub chance is there. And the reason why it's such a big factor for me is captaincy. If I'm not convinced by Saka's minutes, am I going to be comfortable enough to captain him? And that's a big reason for me to bring him in. Game week 12 against Spurs at home, potentially Brentford at home in 14, then Wolves at home in 16. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, I don't know. But with Mbeumo, no issues with the minutes, I don't think. He's clearly first choice. There's no Europe. There's no need to rest him. He just plays all the time. So I'm in 2 minds. When I recorded the team selection video on Thursday, like yesterday, I was pretty set on getting Saka. Then I started thinking about it in the evening. I wasn't so sure. And then we wake up and find out that Madueke could be back. I don't know. And also, it feels a bit passive to play Dewsbury Hall or Senesi this week. But I guess it's also okay, right? I'm not going to have the perfect team every week. So if I do Gyökeres to Guiu, that gives me the money to do Reinders to Saka. And then it leaves me 0.3 million in the bank, which is enough, by the way, to do Paquetá to Minteh in one move. Or I could downgrade Lacroix to a cheaper defender and do Paquetá to Szoboszlai or Sarr or Enzo or whoever I wanted to next week around 6.5 million. I think that's the most sensible move. Getting Saka, leaving 2 free transfers for game week 12 and just having a bit of flexibility. Because obviously if I use all 3 transfers this week and someone gets injured over the break, I've only got 1 transfer to move them, which might be fine if it's just a straight swap for someone else, but not if I want to redistribute that money. So I don't know. If the deadline was in 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure I'd be buying Saka. But I've just had this gut feeling ever since I started considering that it's just not the right move. Like, it would mean I'm only down to 2 Arsenal players, Gabriel and Ray. But as I've already said twice in this video, I don't think that matters as much as people are making out. Like, either getting Saka is the right call or it's not. It's not a case of, well, if I don't get Saka, I've got to get Rice. I don't. That's not how I'm going to view it. Although Rice is an option. I don't want to buy Minteh this week. I don't want to buy Szoboszlai. I guess, to be honest with you, another reason that I'm kind of looking at Saka is I'm not, as much as I like Mbeumo and Sarr, I'm not sure I can buy Sarr right now. I know it was very, very small, tight hamstring, and he still started, he still scored, and he can do the same this weekend. But it does put you off a little bit going into an international break as a non-owner. I think he is fine to buy, but I've played most of this season really cautiously with minutes, and I think so far it's worked quite well, and I kind of want to stick with that. So I think I'm going to buy Saka, but do not be surprised if on the deadline stream tomorrow I go in Mbeumo and Enzo or something like that. Like in Mbeumo and Enzo, and then move Enzo to Szoboszlai or Sarr or someone later on. That is an option. By the way, I've mentioned him quite a lot. I do quite like Szoboszlai. If he's going to keep playing 90 minutes, he's a huge differential and the fixtures are good. And I know it feels like just going for him because it's Liverpool. But obviously, if you can get someone good from Liverpool, it's nice with the fixtures they've got. So, yeah, we'll see. It just means playing Senesi or Dewsbury Hall. Like, just really quickly, I feel like over the last couple of weeks, I've accepted that my team is not perfect, and that's fine because I'm getting close. It always feels like the next week will be the one where it's perfect. But I do think from game week 12 onwards, my team will look a lot better. Game week 12, the bus team will be really good. Game week 13, I might free hit. Game week 14, it looks good again. I'm not going to be in a position unless I get injuries where I'm having to look between Villa away defender or Dewsbury Hall. So maybe I just try and get by one more week and just hope that all those people that have got like Saka, Enzo, Sarr, Njai, midfielders, etc., don't absolutely smash me. I just hope the Paquetá outscores them all like he did mostly last week. Unfortunately, I benched him. Anyway, I'm leaving it there because I'm just rambling now. Saka's probably coming in. If not, probably in Mbeumo and Enzo. Although I could just go Enzo and Sarr and just save the money and maybe get an Arsenal defender later. It's probably going to be Saka. Thanks for watching. Make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button. I'll be back at 9 a.m. Saturday morning UK time for the deadline stream. I'll see you then.